What's up, everybody? Eric Lamoureux here from Just Insert Imagination for episode 2 of the Wiseguys video diary. This is my video log where I talk about my experience writing my first Savage Worlds setting. Last episode, we talked about the research process and said I was going to talk about the actual writing process because of a question from Matt Stark. But first, quickly, a question from my buddy Gary. Gary asked me if I took any classes for writing, and when he asked me that, it was kind of out of the blue, and I thought he was just trolling me. He was trying to make fun of me or something. But yeah, sorry, Gary. Yeah, I guess I'm on the defensive when it comes to you. So anyway, yes, I did, although that was a long time ago. In college, I took some creative writing classes, and I also studied literature. So read a lot of books, wrote a lot of stuff. And creative writing, I always like those classes because they just give you, you have to work within certain boundaries and create something out of that. And I think it funnels my imagination, creativity very well. So yeah, there was that. That was 20 years ago, and in a different language. Of course, it was in French. So now. Yeah, moving on to English. Although I live and dream in English now it's been the case for over 15 years. Well, yeah, 15 years now. So yeah, there was that, and I also remember writing. It's been part of my life for a long time. As a teenager, I wrote a lot. Also, I remember also. I asked my mom, I think 4 years old, preschool, if she could teach me how to write and how to write my name, which is pretty cool. I've always been fascinated by the written words, so I've always been writing something. Maybe a few years here and there where I took some breaks, but yeah. And the fact that I wrote in French and also studied literature in French for most of my life, that was an obstacle for me. But I think it was mostly a self-imposed obstacle. I look up to Umberto Pignatelli, who's an Italian writer. He writes a lot of Savage World stuff. He's the author of Beasts and Barbarians, and he's written a lot of stuff too. And I was chatting with him one day, and I asked him, so how did you do it? You obviously English isn't your first language, and now you've published in English a lot of stuff. How does that work? He says, well, you see, there's something in the industry called an editor or proofreader that will make you look good. So if English isn't your first language, or maybe you have some type of disability like dyslexia and you're worried that you can't really write at the same level as your favorite author, don't worry about it. There are people that are paid just to do that, to correct your bad grammar, your spelling, all that stuff. So just write. So that's it for that. Now on to writing. How did I start writing that? Come from a background. Well. Really coming from a background, but I started writing in the industry as a freelancer, as adventure writer, one sheets that type of thing, which I still do, and I love it. I'm really comfortable with it. And when I write for that, it's pretty simple process where everything is built in my head, and then I chew on it, and then poof, I just start from the beginning, and I write the whole thing, and then of course go over it, change things, and as I write it, it also becomes more clear, more vivid. But that's about it. And you know, you're looking at 2 pages. Some of the adventures I wrote were 8 to 12 pages. It's a lot easier that way. But now a setting, you're talking. Well, at first I was aiming for around 80 pages. Now it looks like it's going to be more closer to 200. But you can't really just hold everything that you need in your head and start from the beginning and just lay it all out. It just, well, maybe someone can, but I can't. So what I did first, well, there was the research part, and then taking notes. A lot of it was actually more about the mechanics. Like I read something, watch a movie, want to replicate that experience into the game, so I would write setting rules, edges, hindrances, that type of thing, which is different from Mornay Scott, from Just Insert Imagination, and how he wrote Winter Eternal, where he began with the fluff, with the gazetteer, the information about the races. There was nothing about mechanics in there. He just laid it all out, all his ideas and stuff, and started with a map. So yeah, I didn't go that way. I just let it happen naturally. So I had all these notes, and what I did is, well, they were like on pads like this, and I'd be at work, and every time I had an idea, I'd just write it down. I'd come home with, both sides of these pages. I'd have 3 to 5 a night sometimes, and this desk was just full of them. It wasn't organized at all. It was just my ideas. So what I decided to do was to take those, and I use Google Documents. So I made a Google document. If you use Word, you can use that too. I don't have it at home. So whatever was on there, I just wrote it all down on that Google Doc. And so I had, I don't know, a dozen or so pages, and they were just notes. Once I had that, then I started looking at the structure of the book, what I thought it would be in the end anyway. So I looked at the structure of other Savage Worlds book, and also Richard Wilcox. He's got, I wouldn't call it a tutorial, but he breaks it down for you, the usual structure, where there's introduction, character creation, gear, setting rules, magic, and then the Savage Tales, that type of thing. And he comments on it and gives you an estimate number of words for each section. So then once I had those notes in there, I just went and put all these sections in there, all these chapters, as headers. Once they were in there, then I took all the notes that I had and moved them in the section I thought they belong to. So I had that, and then I started expanding on those notes that I had. So if let's say I had an idea for an edge, it was basically this edge can do this. It'll give you a +2 bonus to that, or I want this hindrance to make it harder for you to commit crimes. There were notes like that. So I'd take that sentence and then I actually write it into, what you would expect to find in a book. So you've got the structure where it's the name, and then the requirements, and then the description. And then I just went with all my notes like this. Same with setting rules, or archetypes, gear, that type of thing. Everything started out as a list of notes, basically. And then just keep working on it, going from one note at a time until you have some that looks like a real text. And of course, over time, some of these chapters changed. Some parts I thought didn't really belong in the section I put them in first, so I moved them to a different chapter. So yeah, that 10 to 12 pages worth of notes quickly grew to good 30-40 pages. And then having that, I had a better idea of how much work I needed to put in each section. Like I said before, the mechanics part was always more developed early on for the setting. It's like all the fluff was basically in my head. I would still take notes, and like I said, I've got my my journal here, so not to clutter my manuscript too much. Sometimes I'll just write in that journal some notes, taking some notes. And of course, with Google Doc, you can also comment, so leave yourself some notes. Like I'd write an edge and I didn't quite like the mechanical effect of it, and so I'll just write, maybe that's not good enough, let's see if I can find a better way of doing that. Yeah, basically that's how I got started, and it grows organically, and it's like something I always work on. Since then I moved on to different drafts. When I feel I need to delete a bunch of stuff that I don't want in there anymore, instead of deleting it, because you never know, you might need it later, I just make a new draft. I copy it, I delete whatever I don't want in there anymore, and then I start writing again. So if next month I remember, oh yeah, 6 months ago I had this idea for that in there, I could actually go back to it and copy and paste it back into my current draft. Like at first, the whole idea I had was it's always been a toolbox, but I wanted 2 campaign frames for that. One where it'd be more cloak and dagger, gangster stuff, and then the other one would be more vigilante, grindhouse, so like Machete, Desperado, Hobo with a Shotgun, these type of movies. So I wrote a bunch of rules for that that are in earlier drafts right now. They're not in the main document because, yeah, it's just with Wiseguys, with the cloak and dagger stuff, I've got 110 pages right now, and I'm not done. So add another campaign frame to that. That book would be, and I also wanted three settings. I wanted the Vegas one in London, and possibly one in Cape Town that Mornay would write. So trying to fit all that in there, I mean, it could be done, but like I said, first it would be really huge. Second, it would cost a lot of money to produce artwork and all that. And third reason why I dropped that idea was because basically, how do you market that? You know, you want, even right now with the setting of Wiseguys and the toolkit, I'm struggling to find like a short, punchy paragraph where I can market this thing. So just imagine with 2 different campaign frames. I thought it was just too out there right now, maybe too complicated, too complex for me to you know, tackle on at this point in my writing career. So I wanted to keep it simple. So I hope that answers your question, Matt. And I guess we'll leave it at that for today. Not sure what I'm going to talk about next, but there's plenty to talk about. And of course, if you have questions, if there's some specific you want to know about, or you feel that I could have gone into more detail for this episode, just let me know. Just ask and I'll talk about it. So take care, folks. See you soon.